Hello everyone, Bobby Watts here with our fourth installment of Smack101. In our previous installment we were over at Rick's farm and we had some training gear on and we were going over some tail in hovering, sideways hovering, nose in, you know, all of our different orientations, and towards the end we barely started getting into our forward flight. So in this episode what we're going to do is we're going to get into our forward flight and we're going to go back and forth across the field, and we're also going to work on our turns. A lot of guys out there are really only comfortable with doing like an outward turn, we'll call it. So this is our flight line here. They're very comfortable with making an outward turn this way and an outward turn that way. So most of them do like a figure eight sort of deal, outwards. We're going to go beyond that. We're going to work on our inward turns as well, because it's just as important to be symmetrical with everything. So we can go over like a full circuit this way, we can go a full circuit that way. So I'm just going to go over a few of the different things that you can do to practice these things, and they're mostly just orientation, that's all it is. And then towards the end we're going to get into, I guess it's the first aerobatic move that we can start to do while flying, and that's a stall turn. We're just going to come in with a good amount of speed, we're going to go straight up, we're going to do a pirouette, and we're going to come back down. So that's pretty much going to be our episode today. A lot of fundamentals in these. If you feel like this is rushing beyond you, please check out the previous episode, number 3, because in that one it was a really big emphasis on orientations. Orientation is key here. That's really what's important. So I've got my T-Rex 550 today. Today we're going to use the electric helicopter. No training gear. At this point you should be comfortable enough where you don't need your training gear. So we're going to fire it up, and here we go. Alright, so I've got my good old flybarred T-Rex 550 today. It's very windy, but any sort of machine bigger than, I guess, a 500 should do alright in this today. This is why we're not too fond of the micros outside, but something like this will handle the wind just fine. Those of you who are scared to fly in the wind, this is a perfect day to practice. So I'm glad it's windy because you can see, you know, what sort of compromises we have to do when flying. So what we're going to do first of all is we're going to just take off, and we're going to get into our hover that we're comfortable with. So we're just going to take off into a tail end hover. So we lift up, tail end hover, and we're just going to get comfortable. We're just going to give a few pirouettes to the left, a little bit of pirouette to the right, and just get back into our basics here. So our first thing that we want to do is we want to get into that sideways sort of flying that we were doing last time. So remember, we were flying sideways, and then we come sideways again into forward flight like this, and then we'd stop, come tail in, and then we'd come sideways again, sort of into a forward flight like this. And this is exactly how we're going to get into our forward flight. Now I'm doing this a little low, but I recommend you guys go, we always call it 3 mistakes high. 3 mistakes high is you're allowed to make 3 mistakes and then you crash. So to demonstrate 3 mistakes high, we'd probably go way up here. Now Bert, our cameraman, if you can zoom out, you can see how high I am. This is a really good altitude to practice your stuff. So we can do our forward flight here. Come around, forward flight. We can stop. Now I'll bring it down just so that it's a little bit easier to see everything. So we'll do it low, but I recommend everybody do your stuff 3 mistakes high. So we're going to get into our forward flight here, and I'm really going to go across the whole field. Now with forward flight, you really don't want to give too many corrections. As you can see here on my right stick, I'm hardly really doing anything. There's not many corrections that I'm doing here. I just want to give a little bit of forward cyclic to get it going. I plane off, and I'm just upright level, just kind of keeping it level. There's really not too much I'm doing. I'm stopping, turning away from ourselves, get it going, getting into forward flight here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep my collective here, and I'm going to get a little bit of left rudder, and I'm going to come around with the nose facing forward. So that's our outward turn right there. Most guys are comfortable with an outward turn. So we're gonna come back around here.
Explain that that's because
right rudder this time.
Explain that that's because it's never nose in, really.
Right rudder this time, and we're gonna come back around. Now the reason guys are really comfortable with this is because you're really truly never like nose in. The only time you're about nose in is when it gets probably to about here, but you can just keep your forward going. And most guys aren't comfortable with this nose in flying. But what you do with your forward flight is you take this opportunity to get a little nose in. So when you come here, you're just nose in for a second, and then you shy away from it. So this is probably the most comfortable guys are with forward flight. Just an outward turn, just like this. So we just do a little bit of right rudder here, a little bit of right aileron, come into it, and then we back off and we plane out. Now we've got a lot of wind today coming this direction right here, so I really have to push it into the wind. So this is the outward turn here, which guys are really comfortable with. So now we're gonna try an inward turn. It's the same direction here. All I'm gonna do is just come left, in. Now this is tough for guys once again. It's that nose in position. But once you get past it, you're coming around just in your normal flying. So we'll come an inward turn right here. Come around, come around. When the boom is parallel with you, we're gonna cut it in here. Notice everything's a real controlled motion. I'm not fighting anything. I'm not doing anything crazy. I'm not doing anything that I'm not making any sudden inputs. Now watch, if I use a lot of inputs right here, watch, it really buries in and it really picks up a lot of speed. Notice everything was just a real slow amount of cyclic, real slow amount of rudder. Everything's just nice and under control. So this is getting into our forward flight. So we can do a circuit here.
Throw a bell out.
Okay, now when you guys are doing your circuits here, if you ever get in trouble, let's say you start to lose your orientation here, just like I was teaching you last episode, just correct and do a tail end hover. That's always your bailout plan for anything. So if we're coming around here and we do like an inward turn and you get uncomfortable, just pirouette real quick and do a tail end hover. So if you're coming this way into your forward flight, coming around once again, get out of control, always tail end hover and then recuperate. This is like your home base sort of deal. This is really where you're comfortable right here. So we've got our outward turns and our inward turns. So we're gonna put a new battery in, we're gonna go to the next one. All right, so we're in between my two flights here of the episode, and I just want to take this time to re-emphasize what I've been discussing in the first two episodes mainly, and this comes to radio gear, motors, electronics, the helicopter that you're flying. Everything we're doing here in the basics can really be done with a lot of the helicopters out today. My first helicopter was a Raptor 30 V1. I had analog servos in there. I was running the same OS 50 motor. I was running good fuel in there. The really important thing is to have a good gyro, but anything else is just kind of generic stuff. A lot of what I'm doing here, even the setup in my T-Rex 550, is not a super setup. I'm still using, stock motor, stock speed controller. You can use the stock servos. Everything kind of works nowadays. I see all these guys going and buying tons of machines, really expensive 700 electrics, or these 90 size machines which hog a lot of fuel, and they're not very economic. A lot of this can be done on the smaller machines. Just find a machine that's right for you. But a lot of this stuff can really just be done with very basic setups, and we always emphasize to fly with the guys that are flying around you. If a field's flying JR, fly the JR radio so guys can really teach you and help you learn as you're doing it, and stick to the same machine too. I always recommend just one helicopter, maybe two helicopters, and that's how you're going to learn the most. So this right here, I just want you guys to know I'm not running anything super in this helicopter. I'm running a real slow head speed. You'll see when I start to do my stall turns and whatnot, the motor kind of it doesn't bog, but the powers maybe not be there. There's really nothing special here, but the biggest thing is to get your fundamentals and have a helicopter that you're confident in. So I feel like this would just be a good time to tell everybody that. All right, put a new battery in here. We're gonna go into our same sort of deal that we're doing. This time I'm gonna show you how to pick up your speed and carry your speed in your forward flight. So Spool up. All right, so we're gonna lift off, and we're gonna give some collective here, and we're gonna keep our collective going into it. So I'm gonna come away, turn away from me, and so I'm coming downwind here. I'm gonna leave my collective in it, and I'm gonna turn in towards us and really leave the collective in. So now I'm just kind of cruising around, just like an airplane. If you watch my collective here, I'm not gonna change my collective at all. Just giving a little bit of rudder. So here I'll leave the collective in, especially because I'm coming into the wind now. I'm really gonna leave my collective in right here. See, if you notice what I'm doing too, I'm kind of banking and yanking, kind of like an airplane right here. And that's a good way to kind of keep your same altitude as you're going around here. So this is just a nice figure 8. Now, I always learn helicopters first before airplanes, so correlating this to those of you who've flown airplane first, I don't really have too many tricks to tell you because I always learn the heli things first. But the most important thing is to never overcorrect anything. You always want very, very small corrections in here, and to always remember, if you panic, your tail end's your safe place right here. So now what we're going to do is we're going to get into a stall turn. A stall turn is probably the first aerobatic move that you guys can do with ease here. And it's all going to relay into your forward flight. So we'll do it downwind here. So I'm going to come up, upwind. Now a stall turn is we're simply just going to come in with a lot of speed. We're going to pull straight up. We're going to really drive the collective. And when I drive it straight up, we're going to do a pirouette at the top and come back down into forward flight. So here we go. So I'm going to go both sticks forward here to pick up speed. I'm going to pull back on cyclic, hold collective, hold back, hold back, hold back. I'm going to go to 0, pirouette, and come straight out of it. So we'll do it again on this side. So we have both sticks forward, really leave your collective in, drive it, go to 0 on my collective, 180 pirouette, come back down, feed collective in. Now we can go right rudder too. So go full up, right rudder, and back around. Now the biggest mistake I've seen guys do with the stall turn is they'll come here and then they'll just cut it short, and then they have to do like a really small one, and it doesn't look as good. You really just want to leave all your power in, almost full collective right here, drive it to 0, let it hang, come. Now if you watch, I can try to get a real high one here. So I'm coming in with full speed, I'm really pulling back, really pull back. Look how high that one went. Very, very high. And then on the way down I can come. So I can also do a full pirouette up top here too. So I can go up, full pirouette, and then I stop. So for most of you, this is going to be your first aerobatic move. But it's a good one too, because you can do, a bunch of pirouettes up top. You can mess around, and we're going to come back to here. Now, another maneuver that I'm going to show you, I learned this from Todd Bennett. This one's called a ripper. It used to be called a ripper because if your crown gear mesh was not set correctly, it would rip your gears right out, and you'd know why it's called a ripper. So we're going to come around here. We're going to come downwind. Now we're going to come to our 0. We're going to do a pirouette, and we're going to pump the collective as we do it. So here we go. We're going to ride straight up, ride it, go to 0, pirouette, and we're going to pump it, just like that. Now this is a bit of a soft one, so we'll do an aggressive one right here. We'll come up, pirouette, and really pump it, just like that. And once again, when we come nose down, we're fine. We can also do like a 4-point pirouette, or it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4. You can do different sort of points at your different angles. That's really it, the forward flight. Now we can also do a sort of a hurricane. A hurricane is an inverted sort of circuit, but you can do it right side up too. Rick he does these things all the time. Just leave your collective in, leave it on your side, and we're just doing real small corrections here. I'm hardly touching my stick. If you look at my sticks right now, I won't even hardly touch them. And it's just going around, and it's a little sort of turn. We install turn and come back out the other way. Come up, stall turn, and go back around the other way. So here's our forward flight, and here's our different variations of things that we can do in forward flight. Now at the end of the flight, I always recommend guys I call them baby auto rotations. An auto rotation is really important to learn. So if you set up your throttle hold, I usually recommend guys get about, you know, a foot off the ground or so right here, and then they click their throttle hold and slowly feed in collective instead of landing under power every time. So we're gonna hit hold, slowly feed in collective right here, and a nice soft landing. And this will get you into our auto rotations, which we're gonna talk about in our next installment of Smack 101. So hopefully you guys found these tips useful with the forward flight. Remember, very slow inputs. Never really overcorrect it. You don't want to do that. Try to keep it as level as possible. 3 mistakes high, go upstairs. There's no point in really being on the deck here. And then when it comes into the stall turns, you're really going to ride it with a lot of collective. You're going to go straight to 0 and then do your pirouette, and you're going to come back down and really feed it into the wind here. That's really about it. So until next time, we'll see you guys later.